Welcome back to History Rewritten, where we dive headfirst into the wildest what-ifs history has to offer. Today, we're heading to historical America, a land of thriving indigenous empires, colonial ambitions, and untouched wilderness. But with one dramatic twist. What if, in the middle of all that, a colossal asteroid came hurtling through the atmosphere and slammed into the continent? How would the civilizations of the time react? What would survive? And how might history change forever? Buckle in, because this isn't the history you were taught. This is history rewritten. Imagine it's the mid-1500s. Across North America, powerful nations thrive. The Aztec Empire to the south is at its peak, with bustling cities like Tenochtitlan filled with traders, warriors, and priests. Further north, the Mississippian culture's great city of Cahokia has declined, but echoes of its influence remain. Coastal tribes trade extensively, while European explorers begin tentatively mapping the shores. Then, somewhere above the clouds, an object larger than a skyscraper streaks across the sky. At first, it's just a brilliant light, like an early sunrise. But within seconds, it becomes clear that this is no star. Birds scatter, animals bolt. People look up in awe and terror as a fireball brighter than anything they've ever seen cuts through the heavens. The asteroid is roughly 300 meters wide, not extinction level like the dinosaur killer, but more than enough to alter the continent forever. It strikes somewhere near what is now the Great Plains, a relatively flat expanse that maximizes the blast radius. The impact is instantaneous and cataclysmic. A blinding flash, then a shockwave rips outward faster than sound, flattening forests and settlements hundreds of kilometers away. Tribes in the region are obliterated without even understanding what happened. Further afield, people feel the earth shake, see a towering mushroom cloud rising into the sky, and hear a roar that seems to go on forever. Coastal explorers in their wooden ships are knocked off course by sudden waves caused by atmospheric disturbances, staring wide-eyed at a horizon glowing orange. In the immediate aftermath, the continent is plunged into chaos. Fires rage across prairies, ignited by the superheated air from the blast. A crater, nearly 5 kilometers wide, smokes in the middle of the plains. Shockwaves disrupt weather patterns. For days, the sky darkens with ash, turning sunsets into blood-red spectacles. Imagine being a settler in a small colony along the Atlantic coast. Your crops have just started to grow, you're worried about winter, and then suddenly the sky darkens for weeks. Crops fail, temperatures drop, rumors spread through the colonies and indigenous nations alike. The gods are angry. A new age has begun, or perhaps the end of the world is near. For indigenous civilizations, the event would be interpreted through rich spiritual frameworks. Aztec priests might see it as the return of celestial omens, perhaps tying it to Quetzalcoatl or other deities. Some tribes might gather for massive ceremonial efforts to appease the spirits. Others, closer to the blast zone, would be forced into migration, fleeing the ruined plains for survival. This mass movement of people would completely reshape tribal boundaries and alliances. Imagine tens of thousands of survivors moving eastward, running into other nations, sparking conflicts, alliances, and cultural exchanges that might never have happened otherwise. In Mesoamerica, the Aztecs might see the darkened skies as divine punishment, accelerating internal religious reforms, or even sparking revolts. Meanwhile, European colonial ambitions would be thrown into disarray. Early colonies like those attempted by the Spanish or the French would struggle to survive when the global climate takes a temporary dip. Supply lines from Europe are already stretched thin. Add in unpredictable storms and ruined harvests, and many settlements might be abandoned altogether. Some explorers might even turn back, reporting to their monarchs that the New World is cursed or uninhabitable. Over the next decade, the asteroid's longer-term impacts would reshape the continent. The blast would have ejected millions of tons of dust into the atmosphere, cooling global temperatures by a few degrees. This mini-impact winter might last 2 to 5 years, drastically shortening growing seasons. Famine would spread, not just in America, but across the Northern Hemisphere. Indigenous agricultural societies like the Iroquois and the Puebloans would face hard times, potentially leading to widespread relocation. Nomadic tribes might adapt more quickly, moving to find game and new resources. Meanwhile, in Europe, monarchs and scientists would scramble to explain strange weather patterns, poor harvests, and eerie skies. Some might turn to religion, declaring it a sign of divine wrath. Others might push for renewed exploration, hoping to find untouched lands for resources, not knowing the devastation that awaits across the ocean. A fascinating twist comes when you consider technology and adaptation. Without easy colonial expansion, indigenous societies might have more time to rebuild, adapt, and even strengthen politically before European colonization truly ramps up. Some nations might coalesce into larger federations or empires, united by shared trauma and migration. A pan-continental alliance could emerge, centered around surviving the new harsh environment, making future European incursions far more difficult. Trade networks might shift dramatically. The Mississippi River system, already a major trade route, could become even more critical as inland refugees move toward more stable southern climates. Canoes and riverboats ferry people, food and news across vast distances, knitting together alliances that in our timeline never formed. And then there's the possibility of mythology and cultural memory. Such a massive event would be etched into the oral histories of countless nations. Songs, stories, and ceremonies would retell the day the sky fell, shaping identities for generations. Future archaeologists in this alternate timeline might find elaborate monuments or carvings depicting the fireball and the devastation that followed, just as ancient people recorded volcanic eruptions or comets. Fast forward a century. Colonization as we know it might look entirely different. Instead of fragmented tribes facing overwhelming European forces, the continent could be home to several powerful indigenous alliances, forged in the crucible of the asteroid disaster. European powers might find themselves negotiating with unified, resilient nations that have adapted technologically and politically to a changed world. Perhaps colonialism would be slowed or even reversed, with indigenous groups exerting influence over struggling European settlements. Or maybe, centuries later, America would develop into a hybrid civilization, European settlers integrated into dominant indigenous political structures, creating a truly unique cultural blend. And all of this from a single rock falling from the sky. It's a reminder that history can pivot on the smallest, or in this case, largest, of moments. One asteroid, one impact, and the course of civilizations is forever altered. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey through an alternate timeline, make sure to like, subscribe, and share to help grow our community of history enthusiasts. Until next time, remember, this is not the history you were taught. This is History Rewritten.